2019. Leadbelly, Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Nirvana did a famous cover of this in their MTV Unplugged show. One characteristic that suggests this performance was recorded in a single continuous take. Let's have a little listen to the song and follow the scheme at the same time. So track one, what suggests it was performed in one single continuous take? Rather than, I suppose, overdubbing of vocals, overdubbing of extra guitar parts, it's probably asking you to think about mistakes and imperfections, possibly fade-ins, fade-outs. Let's have a go.
In the pond where the sun don't ever shine, I wish you would all night too. Shine, I wish you would all night too.
Okay, it's a pretty terrible recording. And the trouble is, sometimes with a question like that, where it's not giving you a timestamp, it's forcing you to kind of like just browse through the whole song. You don't really have time to listen to the whole 3 minutes, to be honest. It's a lot of time to kill. So maybe just think about a couple of things that you can just outright say that you probably, if you're smart about this and you have a question like this, you probably don't even have to play the song. Just things that could suggest that songs were recorded in a single take. Mistakes, string buzzers, loose timing. Not exactly recording to a click for later overdubs or anything like that. Loose timing with the vocals and guitars together, that is. So it's not like they've, played the guitar straight through with a guide or a scratch or something like that and recorded the vocals on top, and they're a little bit like they don't really sit well with each other. Could be a possible thing that you could talk about, but loose timing. Vocal and guitar sound like they were recorded in the same acoustic, I assume they just mean in the same space, the same acoustic space. No audible cuts, no edit points, no looping. Again, you'd have to listen for the whole song through to determine whether or not there were no cuts, rather than a splicing of a couple of different takes, which is probably what they're going for here, rather than, because like the quality of the recording tells us that it's quite old, so it's going to be recording with tape rather than an audio workstation. I don't think Leadbelly sat there with Pro Tools. So a continuous take rather than takes spliced together. So things like no edit points. So you might have to listen to the song a whole way through, but it seems like such a time killer. But this is a 2019 paper, quite old, so hopefully we're going to get some more, just some better refined questions this time round. This song was recorded in 1944. 3 limitation of 1940s recording technology heard. We've discussed plenty of this sort of stuff in the last few papers and just in general. So things like mono recording, a poor balance of probably of the instruments, also probably signal to noise ratio, that sort of thing. Lack of multi-tracking, overdubbing, one single microphone. So there were fewer microphones, fewer channels. Ambient miking only, no close mics, although with just a vocalist and guitarist, you could have got pretty close. Poor/low signal to noise ratio. Surface noise, distortion, limited frequency response, depending on the type of microphone they used or the equipment they had available. No outboard effects or tempering, it was just microphone straight to tape. No compression either, wide dynamic range of the performance. Yeah, I mean, even if you're not sure on some of this terminology, you can just listen to it and think, okay, it sounds bad. Why does it sound bad? Equipment, okay, it's the equipment that we're using, and then maybe take a few steps from there as well. Think about the amount of microphones that we're using. Or think about the technology we have now and then think about it in reverse order if you're having trouble thinking about it. But limitations, definitely, there's a clue right here. Limitations of technology when it comes to production, what sort of things could mean that you're limited. What do we have to take away? Or what could we take away to show just what we had? 2 ways in which a recording engineer could add reverb to the recording. 2 ways. So we have. So there's not going to be any digital here, so we're not going to be able to put any plugins on. That's for sure. It's 1944. So one way is you just make use of the space. So you're recording in a large space to make use of to add reverb. It says to add reverb. Although looking at the mark scheme, it doesn't necessarily mean like in post because it's got natural reverb, which I was just talking about, captured at the time of the recording. So you could either use like a separate microphone if you had that many inputs too, to record the ambience of the room, or just to record further away from the performer. So that's capture at the time to include reverb. Or this chamber reverb added after the recording, where we have a separate room, a reverb room, with microphones set up in it, and a speaker at one end. This is what chamber reverb was, and you play back the track, or you play back something, an element of the recording that you want this chamber reverb on. Play it back through the room, and it picks up via microphones at the other end of that, and then recorded back into tape. So then you add that chamber reverb after the fact. So recording is played back into a concrete room, chamber, stairwell, wherever, and re-recorded. And you can try this sort of thing. You can just take any recording you want, play it back through a giant speaker with a microphone at the other end in a large room or hall or whatever else, record the ambience, and then just line it up with the recording in your DAW, and then blend that in as a second, as a chamber reverb. Spring reverb, so putting it through a spring, like we had a couple of questions back in a different paper. You just send one signal dry, one signal through a physical spring or physical plate reverb. There you go. Picked up by the pickup / transducer. So yeah, natural in the space, chamber, reamping it through a room essentially, or putting it through a physical spring or a physical plate reverb. Two methods of removing unwanted noise from historical master recordings. Well, one obvious one is obviously use of EQ and filtering, right? So high pass filter to remove the low frequencies, or a low pass filter to cut away the high frequencies. So any sort of there's a high pass to take away the low, or a low pass to take away the highs, or you could use a notch filter to take away certain frequencies. So yeah, the obvious one is to talk about EQ. What else have they mentioned? Notch filter, noise reduction, a denoiser, some sort of fancy plugin. A filter based on a noise print analyzed at the start and end gaps. Yeah. So I think there's certain plugins that can scan for certain frequencies that you just want to take out, almost like I suppose, an automated or dynamic EQ, something like that. Click, crackle, removal filter. Fade in at the start and the end. De-esser, or a gate, an expander. Don't award a general reference to EQ / cutting noise. Yeah, I think they want to be pretty specific with the filter techniques that you use. So just two. There's a whole bunch here to sort of choose from with a question like this. Next question. We're on Tom Sawyer. I brought tea with me this time. So yeah, just to wrap up the last one, just use of EQ and filtering to take away frequencies you don't want. Tom Sawyer, track 2. This version of the song is remastered from a remastered edition from an album. One process used when remastering an album. We have compression, limiting, maximizing, so making things louder overall. Multiband, we looked at that before, so just focusing on one particular band of the frequency response of the track and compressing that. Normalizing, bringing it up to 0 dB. Stereo widening, if you've got a mono track, and you're thinking like, I've got 2 speakers and 2 ears and whatever else, some stereo widening techniques just to sort of spread the track around a little bit in the master stage. There's a great stereo plugin on Logic, the Stereo Spread. which you can use either in master or in acoustic guitars or vocals or anything else like that that you want to push around the mix. It's under imaging, stereo spread. So it's a great little plugin. We've got the frequency spectrum at the bottom here, 20 hertz to 20k, which you can manipulate and decide like, okay, I'm just going to spread the frequencies of this, between 200 hertz to 3.6, and you've got, I suppose, int for intensity, perhaps. Who knows? So just how far left and how far right in the stereo field you're going to push those certain frequencies. We've got an order here as well, so how many different sections we're going to cut up. So just 3 sections, 4 sections, 5, whatever else. Okay, and then how far left and how far right we're going to push certain frequency pockets. So 2k to the right, we've got 5 to 10k over on the left here, or anything that sort of falls in there, which can, take an acoustic guitar or a piano, you can push that around. It's a beautiful plugin, works great in the stereo out. For mastering, just be gentle with it, otherwise you don't want to push too much of your mix around. I don't think I'd dare use it on a stereo out, actually, probably just on tracks within the mix to make the mix sound better and wider. I'd be worried about using it on the stereo out by pushing too many things around that I don't want to be pushed around that sat in the mix quite well. Could really mess things up. What else? EQ, noise reduction, input of metadata. So this is things like when you play CDs and it's got like track 1, songs of hell, something like that, or songs of praise, whatever you like. So there's the metadata. Analog to digital conversion, digital to analog conversion, some sort of a conversion there. And the mastering, anything you do that you've not done on the mix, that's just getting it ready for commercial or private release, really. Cleaning things up. And they only want one thing. But usually it's like, if it's one thing, just either talk about like compression or EQ or stereo. They're good shouts. Describe the lead synthesizer settings heard in the song using the table below. So to describe at 1 minute 33 the portamento, and at 157 the low frequency oscillator, the LFO. Portamento, that is the glide between 2 notes. Check that, portamento. I'm not too used to these fancy musical words. Portamento means it is the pitch that is carried from one note to the other. Yes, so a slide from one note to the other. So we're going to listen and describe the portamento from one note to the next. Let's start there at 1 minute 33. Where's our files? There we go. 133. Yeah, I've got the right tracks open. No, Tom Sawyer. Track 2, the portamento, the glide from one note to the next on 133.
Tom Sawyer, he gets high on you, and the space he invades, he gets by on you.
So you hear that wee 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 wee. It's not you can. There's some good blending going on between those notes, which is it's the transition from one note to the next. It's not like got some heavy attack on those notes. It's like click 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 click, or short or anything like that. They're blending really nicely. So we've got any one of fast / short, not low. So it's a fast portamento, 0.1 seconds to 0.4 seconds. So a fast portamento, so it's gliding between those notes very quickly. It's not taking a long time. And the legato is on rather than short staccato notes. We've got a long legato. So any one of these. So it's a quick portamento. You can give a time if you want to in seconds, or you can mention its legato quality. Now the LFO at 157. 157. So the thing is that very obvious I think going on. Let's hear it again. So remember, our LFO is one thing that it manipulates something else. Let's just recall this to default here. So your LFO, it's like, okay, it's a low frequency oscillator. It's a frequency that is, propagating and moving at a frequency that is very low. So usually they're below 20 hertz, but some LFOs in synthesizers can run up to like 250 hertz. This one runs up to 200 hertz, but you never hear them. You never hear them. They're always there, just doing something to something else. So depending on the wave shape, okay, square wave, sawtooth wave, triangle wave, the click, damn it. Oh no, there we go. Depending on like the whoop and the drop off, like the shape of like the this triangle wave here or the square wave here, depending on the shape of it, is it's going to sort of like manipulate and jostle another parameter. So the LFO and the retro synth, I think it only manipulates the volume. Okay, so it acts as like a tremolo. So let's hear this here. Crikey, let's bring that guy down. Oh, it's going through. I'm playing the bass. Let's go back to my retro synth. There we go. So here's the LFO here. So if I push the intensity up, let's bring in the vibrato. Let's turn you off somehow. What do I turn you off? Sync off. Okay, that's on off, right? So our LFO. Oh dear. Okay, let's bring in the vibrato as well. I don't really want to hear the vibrato. Oh, I'm not. Okay, so, all right, that's a separate slider. So LFO, I've used this synthesizer before. So our LFO, you can see it flashing away there. So if it's at like 1 hertz, it's traveling at like 1 cycle per second, right? I don't think I can get it on 1 hertz. I'll do 1.8, 2 hertz, 2 cycles per second. So if I increase the intensity of the LFO down here as well. So my LFO, it's turning on and off the volume here. If I change my wave shape, it's gliding in and then gliding out. It's making use of that waveform to manipulate how the volume is turned on and off. You can also route LFOs to other things like pitch to fluctuate the pitch and whatnot and what else. There's also a vibrato LFO. So you can hear now if I turn the LFO off for that. More intensity, what's happening is it's putting a vibrato onto those notes. If I change the waveform shape and the rate maybe. Good, so you can hear the vibrato in there, and the LFO was changing the tremolo, the output of the volume. So let's have a look and go back to our paper. So describe the LFO at 157. It says that it's changing the vibrato, that it's set to modulate the pitch. So the LFO it's targeting the pitch, or it's targeting the vibrato. It doesn't just have to target the volume. High depth, so high LFO amplitude, so it's moving quite fast. Depth increases as the modulation wheel increases. So maybe it's going via the modulation wheel. That's controlling the LFO physically. 8th note, 16th note rate between 2 to 8 hertz. Very specific. Sine or triangle wave. Let's have another listen here at 157. Yeah, there it goes. So vibrato, fluctuation in pitch. It's giving a tremolo-like effect, but it's definitely a vibrato there. So yeah, some of these effects, they they do slightly trespass on one each other. There it is. There's our LFO. Describe the compression used on the bass guitar between 157 to 230. 157 to 230. The compression on the bass guitar. Okay, there's lots of attack on that bass guitar, quite sort of a big sort of plucky sound. So I imagine it's probably got quite a fast response in the compressor, lower threshold, high ratio. Again, like a typical sort of like heavily compressed sort of settings there. Let's take a look and see what the answers spat out. Yeah, heavy compression, fast attack time to really grab those transients nice and quick, which is making them sound like they're clipping a little bit. Higher ratio, it's adding some sustain into the notes because we've evened out those the dynamics of the entire bass audio overall. So there's longer sustain. Fast release time, high makeup gain because it's quite loud. Let's bring it back again. Yeah, just heavy compression. Just two answers there for that guy. Right, EQ has been used to differentiate between the bass guitar and the kick drum in the mix. I've done this one before and I don't agree with how they do it. It's a bit silly. EQ has been used to differentiate between the bass guitar and the kick drum in the mix between 157 to 230. Draw an EQ contour on each of the graphs below to demonstrate how this would have been achieved. So I think it's kind of it's really kind of elementary, but it's like, the kick and the bass drum, they've got some good clarity in the mix, so the EQs are going to be different. The EQs are just going to be different to make space for each other, so there's no frequency masking, essentially. So draw the EQ on each graph. So let's have a listen. 157, 230. It's where we just heard, right? I think. Okay, so there's like lots of mid-range on that bass guitar or high mid-range that's cutting through because of the compression. We can hear like either like the fingers on the string. It's more likely fingers than a guitar pick, I think. Yeah, it's Rush, so it's Geddy Lee's finger style on the bass. So mid-range is right in the mid-range. Kick drum, it's got a lot low energy, but it's also got some clicking in there as well. So. I think, so it looks so silly. Bass guitar EQ, mid-range boost, and you can see what they've done on the kick drum is they've boosted the lows and boosted like the high mid-range. So it's like, bass guitar goes here, kick drum goes here, they're away from each other. You can hear everything beautifully. Mid-range band boost, center frequency 200 Hz to 2K. Mid-range band boost covers at least 2 divisions on the graph. Okay, there's lots of divisions. Max 1 if any additional boosts outside of 200 to 2K range or any cuts. Okay, so they're pretty specific. They only want you to boost in this section here, but cover at least 2 divisions of the graph. Nothing lower than 200 Hz or higher than 2K. That's only hitting 1K though. Could that not go up to there? Low frequency band boost with a center frequency between 40 to 100 Hz. Same up there, 60 to 150. High mid-range frequency band boost. Yeah, have they given any alternatives? Or to basically big mid-range scoop where we've boosted the bass guitar. So basically, bass guitar, we want that mid-range boost because it's cutting through. And it's like, well, you can't do the same with the kick drum because then they'll be fighting for space, right? So they've either said you can either boost on the lows and the high mids of the kick drum, either side, or we'll let you have a mid-range scoop to make space for that bass. Just looks really silly. But I get it. It's like a really elementary sort of approach here. So it's like, well, there it is. You can see that and you can take it for what it is. Emily, Sunday, my kind of love. Emily, I don't know. Use the dials below to draw the settings that would recreate the reverb heard on the lead vocal. We had another question like this in another paper. Very nice. So, type of reverb, hall, gated, which is, we got reverb and then we got a noise gate after it, which is cutting it off, or it could be side chained, so the noise gate opens up and allows the reverb to happen in time with the drums, say. So whenever the snare drum hits, the gate opens, we hear the reverb. Reversed plate reverb, our favorites for vocals, or room. So no spring on there, which is good because it doesn't really belong with a vocal, although, rules are there to be broken with music production, so try what you like. Room, hall. Okay, so we've got room, which is like medium, small, hall, which is large, gated, reverse, and plate. Pre-delay in milliseconds is how long it takes for the reverb to start after we've heard whatever's triggering it. So we hear a vocal, then we hear the pre-delay. If it's got no pre-delay, the reverb happens at the same time. But the pre-delay it's sort of offsetting the reverb. It's like, okay, we're going to wait 100 milliseconds and the reverb can come in. It can be quite, it's great to create a bit of space in the mix to push things back, give a little bit of clarity with the vocal as well. If you want certain words to be heard, then the reverb to delay afterwards, so the vocal isn't completely soaked, particularly if you're using quite a large reverb sound. And the reverb time in seconds, which again you can calculate by listening to a vocal phrase or a guitar phrase or whatever else you're listening to. Whenever that phrase ends and there's space in the mix to listen to the reverb, otherwise it's just in a perpetual state and it's quite hard to be like, how long is this reverb lasting? All I can hear are the vocals and the lovely reverb. But wait until that phrase stops, the singer stops for a second and you can hear that reverb carry on. Okay, right, here we go. So hall, pre-delay, and reverb time at 2 to 16.
I can't buy your love, don't even want to try. Sometimes
Okay, you can hear the obvious pre-delay, which is where the reverb comes in just after the vocal.
I can't buy your love.
Quite a generous pre-delay there, isn't it? It's coming in quite a bit after.
I can't buy your love.
Okay, it's a big luscious reverb too, so that's pointing towards hall, possibly plate, but I put my money on hall.
Don't even want to try. Sometimes the
And a nice long reverb as well.
truth won't make you happy. Still, I'm not gonna lie. But don't ever.
Yeah, quite long, probably between 2 to 3, maybe minimum of 2 seconds. Pre-delay, maybe like 150 milliseconds on a hall. That's a total guess. Let's have a look. Hall reverb, 200 to 400 milliseconds. Okay, I was a bit shy. I guessed here. Yeah, to be fair, it is a little bit longer. 2.5. Yeah, okay. So I should have been a bit more sort of like, it's definitely longer. Pre-delay is definitely longer, but it's kind of hard to judge these things when you don't have the reverb parameter, the actual reverb in front of you. Of course it is. It's a hard guess. So hall, yeah, 200 to 400 milliseconds. It was quite a long pre-delay, wasn't it? Wasn't quite half a second. And 2.5 to 4 seconds. Yeah, I originally did say 3, but I was like, is that too long? But, it was like a 2-second listen. So spend a little bit of time listening, and maybe 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi to count out those reverb times in seconds. 4 production techniques or tracks present in the first half of the chorus that are not in the verse. So this is another one of these questions. It's like, okay, what's changed? 4 production techniques or tracks. So, let's have a listen. We've got the list here. So see if you can pull some of these things out. And again, yeah, you're listening for like layering of instruments that come in, instruments that go away, effects that have been used, stereo effect, anything like that. Okay, we'll listen from, because they've done it in like reverse order, haven't they? Chorus, then the verse. Let's listen to the verse going into the chorus. Well, we'll listen to the verse, because there's a bit of a break, isn't there, between 21 seconds and 44. 0 to 21.
I can't buy your love. Don't even want to try. Sometimes the truth won't make you happy. Still, I'm not gonna lie. But don't ever quit. question if my heart beats only for you. It beats only for you.
All right, there's our verse. So huge reverb that we heard in our previous questions, some piano, a little bit of delay right up towards the end. So let's compare that to the chorus at 44 seconds.
When you give it up, when no matter what you do, it's never good enough. When you never thought that it could ever get this tough, that's when you feel my kind of love.
All right, cool. I mean, there's so much in there. It's such a dense track. Overuse of reverb, in my opinion. I think it sounds a bit bad. So, yeah, big differences. Instrumentation. There's some drums in there. There's like that kick thing going on. There's a bass pad in the background. Use of distortion. Definitely on some of the vocals, they sound much more saturated. Yeah, low pass filtering on the drums. They sound sort of very noise next door, don't they? There was an electric guitar synth apparently right here. Played in there. Lead vocal doubled an octave lower. Okay, so there's some treatment of the vocals. Go back over and listen to some of these things. Okay, I'm not going to keep playing the track here, but just pull some of these things out. The R's and the O backing vocals. More reverb. Didn't need more reverb. It already had so much reverb. Lead vocal reverb reduced. It didn't sound like it. Sounded like more. More varied stereo field panning. So production techniques and instrumental approaches that have changed, okay? And when you listen to a couple of questions like this, there can be a lot to unpack. So just focus on like one instrument at a time, or and write it down and keep listening. Don't try not to get overwhelmed by listening out for everything at once, because you might just write one or two things and then forget about the other things. So listen once for one thing, listen again for the next thing, and again for the next thing. Or just listen through a couple of times and write down as many different things as you can. Whatever works for you. But there's lots to unpack, and usually they're pretty good at giving you a couple of sections that are wildly different. Describe the use of filtering, so use of VQ, use of frequency manipulation between 129 to 150. Are we talking just in general, or on a certain instrument, or vocals, or what? I don't know. 129 to 150 could just be. Well, let's find out. 129 to 150.
You won't see me at the parties. I guess I'm just no fun. I won't be turning up the radio, singing "Baby, you're the one." But don't ever question if my heart beats only for you. It beats only for you.
All right, so there's a very, very slow, high-pass filter going on, right? I think the vocals are pretty unaffected, but it's like that kick and some of the pads in the background. There's a low cut to a high pass thing going on, sweeping across that looks a little bit like opening up. So it starts other way. Yeah. So it's like and it brightens up, it opens up, so that's kind of happening in the background there. So there's a low pass filter opening up. Low pass / high cut filter removes the high frequencies. Right one, yeah, 3C. Gradually reintroduced. Filter applied to backing instruments. Yeah, not the vocals, so the vocals unaffected. It's resonant. Yeah, that sort of sounded a bit resonant towards the end. It started to get a bit whistly. Let's have a listen here.
You won't see me at the parties. I guess I'm just no fun. I won't be turning up the radio, singing "Baby, you're the one." But don't ever question if my heart beats only for you. It beats only for you. I know sometimes
Yeah, a little bit resonant. Filter applied to the backing vocals, not the vocal. Yeah, okay, so there's like, you can hear that obvious filter moving through. All right, last track. Nitin Sawhney. Yes. Featuring Tina Grace. Nostalgia, track 4. 2 lo-fi features Heard between 0 to 26. 2 lo-fi features.
Our mind, we had this thing that one day perhaps we will come back to this country and bring our children and show them, and what we had to sacrifice to be in that country,
But I think in the initial stages we had a lot of struggle, but with God's grace and His kindness, we are okay now, and our children are okay as well, I think.
So I'm going to guess things like dialogue, use of dialogue, some filtering on the vocals. Most obvious thing is like the crackle that you hear, the vinyl crackle to make it sound very old school. Crackle, found sound / atmosphere samples, field recordings, talking, clicking, train noise, anything sort of like ambient and found sound is used a lot in lo-fi. Telephone effect, restriction of frequency response, loudspeaker distortion. So there was some obvious filtering going on there. Easy. Band pass filtering, crackle, vinyls, and found sounds and dialogue used quite a lot in lo-fi. A live string section is featured in the song. Describe how you would select and place microphones to record a string section as heard in the song. So the things with recording like string sections in orchestras, condenser microphones are like the go-to because they have a wide frequency response, a lot more attention to detail, generally flatter frequency response as well. They're not tailored. They can be, but they're not as tailored as dynamic microphones are. And they can take a wide dynamic range. So there's a couple already. Let's see what we say. There's a nice long list here. Polar patterns, mentioned those. So omnidirectional microphones for room ambience. If you're recording your string section. Overhead microphones. They've name dropped a couple of stereo recording techniques here. The ORTF, AB, mid-side. The decatry isn't in there, but the decatry is used quite a lot in orchestra recordings. Cardioid or hypercardioid for close spot mics to reduce ambience and spill. Again, like some of these questions, it's like, think about this in context of a certain instrument. Think about it broadly for a start. Think about what you have at your disposal as an engineer. I got microphones. What type of microphone? What type of polar pattern? Close miking, room miking. What type of room am I going to put them in? Am I going to overdub anything or have it as a live performance? Am I going to separate things with screens? So many different things that you can think of that then you can just apply to this one scenario. So it doesn't even really look like they mention like strings at all. So separate spot mics for each section or instrument. Just in general, acoustic screens, omni mics for very close spot mic placements as they do not exhibit the proximity effect. Close mics placed here, whatever, a certain distance away. Stereo microphones, large diaphragm microphones for lower instruments, small diaphragm microphones for higher instruments because they have a higher frequency response. Just a general sort of response to miking any task really, but then tailor it towards the orchestra, the string section here. So just think about all the attributes that recording has out in the field, and then what that means for the recording in terms of microphone type, polar pattern, distance, stereo recording techniques, acoustic screens in the room, use of the size of the room, dampeners, all sorts of things like that. Two production techniques that have been used to add interest to the lead vocal between 40 seconds to 120. 40 seconds to 120. Techniques that have been used to add interest.
I can feel your dreams. I can see you. I can touch your memories, but I can't hear you. I can feel your dreams. I can see you. I can touch your memories, but I can't hear you. Was that for like distant rain? Was that for like? Was that worlds that echo in your eyes?
All right, so much, heavy use of compression. There was some delayed vocal notes in there. There was some panning, use of filtering, reverse notes. But there is, you got 4 marks, 2 spaces, so I assume it's like a point and explain thing again. 1 mark is awarded for each point, with a further mark and explanation at the 2 points. Okay, so it's giving context to whatever's going on. Answers might include delayed, repeated audio to bring out the keywords in the song on Dreams with repeats panned, which is tempo synced. Yeah, so you can mention, okay, there's delay, but what's the context of that in the track? Okay, it's tempo synced. Okay, it's focusing on certain words. The reverse effect of the start of phrases and between phrases, yeah, that came in at just the right sort of time in the structure of the piece there to add an important change, or at least to sort of highlight certain changes in the vocals. Feeling of motion mirroring the forthcoming vocal phrase, yeah. Filtering telephonic effect to move back in the mix, yeah, that was quite nice. Causing the vocal to move back in the mix, restricting the vocal frequency response is what it does. So what's been done and what does it do as well? And the reverb decreases or bypasses, bringing the voice closer, which is probably what I thought was overuse of compression. Maybe it was just the reduction of the reverb to pull the vocal further in the mix, which would be an explanation on a point of that. So whatever you hear, talk about it in context of the tracks. What is it doing for the track? Why did you think the producer made that choice? That's it. That's the end of that guy. There's our 2019 paper. And again, yeah, go back and listen to some of the audio on your own computer. Follow through the paper here to get used to writing out some of these responses.